And the school committee needs a little humor now. Could you identify yourself, please, for the people listening?
Richard Smyth, 2 South New Street. I was present at both your last meeting when you voted on the Tilton School solar panel project and at the summer meeting when you voted on the high school project. My comments tonight relate to these 2 votes and the arguments presented for voting against these common sense proposals. I'll preface my remarks with an anecdote. This past summer, while in Valion, a Haverhill-based solar company was installing solar panels on the roof of my home, one of the installers questioned the sagging porch roof where many of the panels were to be installed. He was concerned about it caving in with the weight of a New England snow. I called Tom Wu, the chief executive officer of Envalion, and asked him about this. He spoke of how the installer didn't have an engineering background and therefore didn't have an understanding, as he did, as designer of the system, about the maximum amount of stress that wood can take before it breaks, saying that it was quite simple to determine if a roof can handle a particular load. He also spoke of bending moments that are a matter of angle and the length of wood, explaining that the measurements of my porch roof were such that there was no reason for concern. As he spoke, I was reminded that Wu was the one with the degree in mechanical engineering from Georgia Tech, an extremely well-respected institution, and that I needed to trust this person who has the knowledge, expertise, and experience necessary to successfully carry out such a job. Given this experience, I was astounded to hear the insinuations of committee members Ryan Ciardello and Wood that the structural engineer hired to examine the roof never actually showed up to do so. To then suggest that this professional would subsequently lie about this in a letter meant to confirm his work and give it his official seal of approval is ludicrous. During the meeting, some committee members complained about learning more about solar than they ever wanted to. After hearing Mr. Pacheco's articulate replies to Mr. Woods and Mr. Tui's suggestions that the city should own the panels, it was painfully obvious that they didn't learn enough, especially about the legal matters involved in making the panels work from a financial point of view. After reasonable rebuttals to the questions that the dissenting voters had, it seemed clear that these votes were based on something other than reason. Let me remind you, it's not your job to be the expert in these matters. It is your job to know when to trust the expert as well as to know when to trust such an experienced and articulate employee such as Orlando Pacheco, one whom the city employs to vet vendors like Envalion and to choose the best options available to the city based on the constraint of the laws limiting municipal projects like the ones proposed. I was frankly offended that you would waste time offering such spurious arguments. In other words, your arguments were no arguments at all. And to say that this is your opinion becomes ridiculous when you're talking about obeying laws. A public official shouldn't have an opinion about whether or not to obey the law. It's just something that you do as a public official. In the study of classical rhetoric, which I used to teach at the college level, ethos has to do with one's character and the extent to which one is perceived as an authority on the matters of which one speaks. Ultimately, it speaks to the credibility that one has. Let me suggest that after your ludicrous and spurious arguments trying to support your negative votes, your ethos is greatly diminished. To put it more bluntly, your credibility is shot. And credibility, like trust, is hard to earn back once it's lost. Thank you for your time and for the chance to deliver these remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Smyth.